Hi, welcome to Papa's Workshop. Today is a big day in the shop. One of the problems that I have had for a long time is not enough wall space. Can't expand the shop, I can't create any more wall space, but I can create a cabinet that will give me 4 times the storage space and that same square footage on the wall. So let me show you how I did it today. Let's get started. I went ahead and put my 4x8 sheet of plywood on the panel saw, and of course the first thing I want to do is measure and get the length that I need for this cabinet. Using the panel saw to cut the plywood is really, for me, the easiest way to do it, and it's a whole lot easier than using the table saw and trying to maneuver that full sheet. And this panel saw that I have is actually square with less than a 32nd of an inch. And I can live with that. That's not bad. And now that I have smaller, more manageable sheets of plywood, I can go ahead and cut the actual cabinet to this final size. The next thing that I did is I went ahead and set up a stacked dado set into the saw, and I used my auxiliary fence so that I can actually cut right up to the fence itself and not damage the saw blade. By doing this, I'm actually creating a zero clearance guard for my fence because I'm cutting 3/4 of an inch and I need that to be right at the fence itself. This is the only safe way to be able to do it. Okay, this will be my first cut right here. This will be my second cut right here when I split the box apart. So I want to be able to have a divider running right through here. And that's going to be right there. That's the center point. I can check that over here on the blade on how I've got the saw set up. And that will be perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and run that through the saw now. Here are the 4 sides, top, bottom, left, and right, of the cabinet that I'm making. So I'm getting ready to assemble it, and I have the front and the back off to the side. I'll show you those as I assemble it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put all this together. And of course, to begin with, I'm going to be using the glue. And I'm just using the Type Bond, the regular glue. So I'm going to go ahead and spread this out with my finger. I do want to get it on all of the surfaces good. Finger always works real good. Now I'm using a different air compressor today. My big air compressor is actually at a house that we're remodeling. So I've got a little potbelly one that we're using. And it's important that I keep the orientation correct too. Bottom has to stay the bottom, or I should say the back. The back of the cabinet has to stay the back. This is the back of the cabinet. That's the part that goes down to the table. And now that will slide in place. Got glue on all of the surfaces now. And I'm going to go ahead and put the back in. What that does too is help square it up. Perfect. I like that. Now we'll go ahead and shoot that in place. Now this inside dado is actually going to be for another shelf that goes inside of here, but that will be installed after I cut this apart. So I'm going to go ahead and get the front put on next. So everybody that had comments last time about glue, this is the cabinet with this type of cuts, with the dados and the rabbets. You need the glue. The one that I did before was specifically designed as a beginner entry-level cabinet, and the way it was designed and put together, it did not need to have the glue. This cabinet is going to be supporting a lot of weight, and it's going to need the staples, and it's going to need the glue to be able to hold it. Now then, all that's left to do is just let this glue dry. You know, while the glue is drying, I want to take just a moment on a personal note and thank everyone for their support. This channel has grown beyond my wildest dreams in the last year and a half, but I need your help. If you liked the video, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. Because currently, with the changes in YouTube and how the algorithms are written and monitored, I've got about 80% people looking at the videos and not subscribing. So the second thing that I need help with is for you, because this channel is all about you, leave me a comment. What would you like to see? What topics am I not covering that you would like to see to be able to learn about, to watch, and to be able to grow in your own personal lives? Now let's get back to the show. I think the glue is dry. Okay, it's the next day and the cabinet is all dry, and right now I've got a great big sealed box. It's time to be able to open it up. And what I'm going to do is divide this up into thirds. And this is the back of the cabinet. So what I've done is measured over 5 inches, and I'm going to set this up on the table saw, and I'm going to cut this open at the 5-inch mark. This is the part that'll get mounted to the wall. Then the next section, that's the section where I also have to put that vertical insert in, and that will be the next 5 inches, and then the mount that's left over will be where my drawer fronts are, and there'll be storage on that as well. So let's get started with cutting this box open. Now off camera, I went ahead and set up the table saw fence at the 5 inches. Cutting this big box open is really not much different than just cutting a regular piece of plywood on the table saw. It's just bigger and taller. Now once I make this first cut, all I need to do is just rotate it and run it through the saw another time, and I'll repeat this process for all 4 sides. Now having completed the first section, I can go ahead and remove that from the table saw and set it off to the side. Now I'm cutting the next section exactly the same way that I did the first. I'm just going to run it through the saw on all 4 sides. Now I'm just completing that last 4th cut and splitting these 2 sections in half. So that gives me my front and my middle section. The next step is to be able to cut this into the 2 halves. And I set the table saw up for the 12 and 1/16 of an inch to split it. Now I'm cutting this side first because the height of this door is still higher than the blade of the saw can go. So I want to be able to cut the plywood on the top and bottom, and that way when I flip it over, it'll be again like just cutting a single sheet of plywood, and it'll be separated. And this is a much, much safer way to be able to cut it. And now for the final cut, where this is just cutting like a regular sheet of plywood, and it has that relief so it separates the 2 halves. Far safer than doing it any other way. And now it's just time to make the last 2 cuts to be able to separate this. And you notice I'm using my miter gauge to be able to help support the wood to be able to run it through. Now I'm cutting the 2 vertical panels that go inside that middle section of the cabinet. Okay, I've got the inserts cut and installed. They're glued in. All I got to do is just finish stapling it. I'll do the same thing over here. Okay, that completes the basic construction of the cabinet. What I'm going to do now is just go ahead and sand everything and assemble it. To begin the sanding and finishing phase, I wanted to take the trim router with a 1/4 inch round over bit in it and just round over the front of the cabinet face. Now this only takes a few moments to do, and I think it'll add a lot to the cabinet. Now to be able to attach the 4 doors to this cabinet, I'm using a piano hinge. And this hinge is from one of the big box stores. And what I'm going to do, since this is a 48-inch long, I'm going to cut this in half, and that way I'll actually be able to get 2 hinges. And I'm just going to verify that this is true 48 inches, and it is. So what I'm going to do is just mark it at the 24-inch line, and that will give me 2 hinges that are of the same length. And that's my point right there. And I'm just scratching that in with just an awl. Now that I've got several choices, I can use the angle grinder to be able to cut this, or I can use the Dremel. And because this is pretty small material, I think I'm just going to use the Dremel to cut this with the cutting wheel. Now I put a new cutoff wheel into the Dremel, and I'm just taking my time and cutting this across. Now granted, I could have used the angle grinder and cut it much quicker, but I would venture to say that a lot of people out there don't have the angle grinder, and I wanted to be able to use a tool that more than likely people would have. It takes a little bit longer, but it still gets the job done very well. Now after I cut it in two, I just used the edge of the cutoff wheel and just polished up the edge just so there wasn't any sharp edges. I could have put a little sanding disc on there, but this does just as well because there's very little touch-up that I need to do. To attach the piano hinge, all you have to do is just get it centered. I lined it up where it needed to be, and I had a mark on the box itself, so I knew exactly where I needed to place the piano hinge. Once I had it in position, then I would just take the awl and mark my hole so the screw would go directly into the center of that. Now at this point, what I'm doing is I'm only putting in 6 screws into each of the piano hinges, 2 at each end and 2 in the middle. And the reason that I'm doing this is I want to be able to test it, make sure that everything operates correctly. Plus, I want to be able to go ahead and finish the cabinet before I put in all of those screws. Now I put the screws on the bottom half of the hinge. Now I'm just checking the alignment, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the awl and make my mark in each of the holes across the top of the piano hinge. And then I'll just go ahead and put those 3 screws in quickly, and it'll be done for now. Okay, you're going to see this open now for the first time. Now realize it's resting on the workbench, but that opens up and gives you a lot of room here for tools, and here. This will open up as well, and that's a lot of space for tools. The nice thing about this now is I can open this up again and have, again, the same amount of additional space. This is going to be great. This gives me 4 times the square footage for the same wall space. I want to be able to create more wall space without having a bigger shop. And with this cabinet, that accomplishes that goal. Okay, I've got the cabinet mounted on the wall, and I am just loving the amount of storage space that I have. This is fantastic. Now I'm going to use the rare earth magnets for the door closers, and I'm also got to finish it and put those 1,000,000 screws in place on the piano hinges, and then I'll call it done. And of course, load it up with tools and clear off the rest of my wall space. I certainly can see myself building some additional cabinets like this for the shop. Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video today. If you liked the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified on the different videos that I upload. Also check out the videos over here to be able to stay up to date on the happenings in my shop. So again, thank you for watching my videos.